Breaking news!
Good morning. This is Holly Wood reporting live from Studio 9, right here in your hometown of Cityville. Last night, the home of Patrick and Mary Maloney became a site of tragedy. In the evening hours, Mr. Maloney was found murdered in his living room. It all started when Mr. Maloney arrived home after a seemingly normal day working as a police officer. Mrs. Maloney, noticing her husband was visibly tired and hungry, decided to cook him a leg of lamb and buy a few more necessary items from the grocery store. When she returned to her home, Mrs. Maloney found her husband lying limp on the floor. She immediately called the police station, and now we will play the recording of this message.
Quick, come quickly, Patrick's dead.
Who's speaking?
Mrs. Maloney, Mrs. Patrick Maloney.
Do you mean that Patrick's dead?
I think he's lying on the floor and I think he's dead.
We'll be there immediately.
A doctor, 2 detectives, a police photographer, and a forensic fingerprint expert arrived soon after the call was made. The investigators searched the house for a murder weapon while questioning and consoling Mary Maloney. After their initial inspection of the house, they asked Mrs. Maloney to look around and see if any items were missing. Upon finding nothing that would help determine who the culprit was, Mrs. Maloney showed her gratification by serving them the leg of lamb that had been prepared for her now deceased husband. We originally reached out to Mrs. Maloney for a statement, but she declined an interview. Instead, here we have Jack Noonan, a detective on the case, to answer a few questions. Is it true that you had a prior relationship to the Maloney family?
Yes. With Patrick being a fellow police officer, we created a close bond. After spending much time with him and his wife, she also became a close friend. I not only want to persecute the murderer in order to solve this case, but also bring justice to one of my beloved friends.
Following the search of the house, how do you believe Patrick Maloney was murdered?
Considering Patrick was found in his living room floor with a shattered skull and dried blood on the back of his head, we have concluded that it must have been a large blunt object that killed him. After receiving results from forensic specialists, it has been determined that the murder occurred between 5:30 and 6 p.m.
The police have deduced that the murder weapon must be a large blunt object, but what do you believe happened to it?
Due to the size of the murder weapon and therefore its weight, we have reason to believe that it was stashed somewhere nearby the house. Because our team and Mary did a walkthrough of the inside of the house, it must be outside.
Have you developed any solid suspects yet?
We do not have any current suspects in custody, but we have started a profile. We have narrowed it down to be a male of muscular stature that would enable him to not only carry a large weapon, but also bring the weapon down with a force great enough to cause the fatal injury.
What progress has been made in finding the killer?
It's the old story. Get the weapon, and you've got the murderer.
That is all the questions we have time for today. Thank you, Jack, for your time and your insight into the case of Patrick Maloney's murder. Due to the fact that the murderer has not yet been caught, if anyone has any information or leads on the identity of the culprit, please contact the Cityville Police Station. Thoughts and prayers go out to Mary Maloney for the loss of her husband. In these times, we must come together as a community to restore safety to our town. This just goes to show that all humans are capable of truly vicious acts.